Hey, welcome back to Rust Order Garage. 61 Rambler Rockbox wagon, which is in the air because it's time to do the fuel system. I am still doing the wiring in the background. Not interesting to make videos on wiring, but unless it's an LS swap harness, then I'll do videos. But for this, basically just thinning out a whole lot of harnesses and making them smaller so it's less work to put them in the car. But that would make for a really boring video if this is boring enough for you. So anyway, fuel system. Let's get started on this thing. One thing I do want to say before we get into the fuel system build is, if you didn't see my short, very nicely, guys at Evil Energy hooked me up with some fuel line and some stuff here. We'll open it up and see what's there for the Rambler wagon. We'll get that done. And one thing, part of the reason I agreed to promote them is, one, I've used their stuff before and it works excellent. And two, they gave me discount codes. So it's discount for you and me, because I tried it last night and it works for me as well. So not only right now is there the Black Friday promotion where stuff's on sale at their website, but if you use my discount code RHG, you'll get an additional 13% off. So already things are on sale. Plus, if you use the discount code RHG and use the link in my description to get to the website and use the code RHG, you'll get an additional 13% off. And not only that, there's another thing they're doing right now. They're doing a giveaway. They're going to give away 3 sets of their fuel line kits. In order to get in on that, you got to go to the website. You have to sign up. Well, what should I say? You have to subscribe to their YouTube channel. I don't know if you can do that through the website or not, but you got to go to the Evil Energy YouTube channel, subscribe, and in the comment section, just write Black Friday, and you'll be in on the giveaway. So I think that's pretty cool that not only, sure, it's great that they hooked me up with some stuff, but it's even better that you get the discount code, because now anybody who follows me on this ridiculous build, or any of my builds, can get a discount. So use that code. Use the link in my description to get to the website, because that helps. And then use the code RHG on checkout. And right now you'll get 13% off. It's usually only 10, which is still a great discount. It's going to 13 right now if you use it now. All right, now let's get into this. So fuel system on this is going to be pretty basic. Same as I would do a stock LS swap, or, any other LS swap, really, other than if you had additional items for turbo or boost or whatever. But I have thought about putting a supercharger on this, but we won't talk about that right now. This is going to just be like if we're just doing a stock LS swap. It's an LT1, but it's the same fuel system I would use on either an LS or an LT. Only difference being the fuel pump. We've already gone over the fuel tank that I'm going to use on this. It's from a B-body GM wagon. I think they started in 91 or 92 with the plastic tank, and all the way up to 96. It's a good flat tank that fit under here well, so we're going to use that. And because I'm running an LT1 and the tank's from an LT1, well, I can just use an LT1 fuel pump with the brand new sending unit, because 99% of the time with these tanks, at least in the Northeast, you've got to buy a new sending unit if you use one of these tanks. And the reason for that, of course, is rust. This is my original sending unit out of the tank that we're going to use. I cut the lines off to at least the most decent spot they were. They're still rusty, but I might be able to reflare these into GM push lock or push on type connectors. If I can't, I'll just take these out completely, and I could put a bulkhead fitting in it or something. I don't know. Well, I should just really just throw it away, but I'm a hoarder, because now prices are not so bad on new replacements for these. So here is my brand new one that I got off of eBay, and it's probably, $60, $65 for a whole assembly with the pump, which is not bad at all. And it has, obviously a stock fuel pump in it, which should work fine with the LT1. The LT1 runs at a lower fuel pressure than the LS. LTs, I think, run around 45, and you know the LS is 58 with no regulation. Trucks run at 50 with the fuel pressure regulator plugged in, so that confuses people a lot. They look and they see 50 pounds and think there's something wrong. Nope, they run at 50 with the regulator and vacuum on it. But anyway, not to get on a tangent. So this has an LT1 pump in it, which should work fine with this. If I was doing an LS, I would do what I did on the 55 Buick and take the pump out of here and put in a better pump that runs at probably a higher rating. On the Buick, I put an Evil Energy 255 in there. But this one should work for fine for what we're doing. At least we're going to try it. If there's any issues, I'll swap it out. But why not use it if I already have it? So this is what that sending unit should have looked like. These big long lines. So it's nice to have new stuff once in a while. Oh, and also besides the actual fuel lines, we will talk about the venting system, because the vents on these fuel systems seem to confuse people. There are 2 vents on every fuel system. One, to let air into the tank while the engine's running. Otherwise, you would pull a vacuum on the tank and collapse it. The second vent is to let air out of the tank when you're putting gas in, so that when you go to the gas station and put the pump it wide open, it doesn't just splash back in your face. And we'll go over both of those vents when we put this system in. I go over it every time I do a fuel system, but we'll do it again just because it seems to be a common point of confusion. And I'll show you what I use on LS swap fuel systems. It's going to be the same as this fuel system when there's no evap system, because when you do a standalone engine, at least on OBD2 LS, you can't use the evap anymore. I have used evap with LT1. We're not going to use it on this one. We're just going to do it same as I would do an LS. So we'll go over that as well. Very simple. And when it's all done, it will work perfectly. All right, let's go. So this is going to be a pretty basic, straightforward fuel system. We're going to run obviously an in-tank high-pressure fuel pump. This is going to be like a 99-02 LS. So we're going to run a 3/8 supply line from the tank to a filter up to the fuel rail, and a return line 5/16 from the fuel rail back to the tank. That's it. Very simple. So we're going to get this knocked out. We'll start with the tank. And this is the B-body tank. If you didn't see the earlier video where we did all the mock-up and fabrication to get it to fit the car, we are still going to, or rather I am still going to have to make the cover for it over the top of the vapor dome once that's in there, but we'll get it installed and see what it looks like. And of course, this is a fuel injection tank. It has the tray inside to keep fuel around the pump inlet. I vacuumed out the tank. There was just a few pieces of junk in there, nothing really, because plastic tanks are nice. They don't rust, obviously, so nice to use. So I'm going to put the new sending unit in there. Nothing really to show there. We're just going to fish it in, bolt it down. I'm going to remove the factory filler tube there. I don't know if I'll be able to use it or not. We'll modify something that or make our own, whatever, but that'll be later. Right now, we just want to get the tank in and get all the lines run. So let me get the sending unit installed, and we'll get this up in the car and see what it looks like. And there's the tank ready to go in. Nothing special. New sending unit installed, which is a tight fit down in that hole. You got to kind of wiggle it around and bend the filter sock up and get it all in there. But it's not terrible. It's doable. Just make sure you use the new O-ring seal for the sending unit when you install it. And don't forget to put the O-ring around the bottom of the sending unit before you put it in the tank. Don't ask me how I know that. So anyway, it's ready to go in. Let's get it in the car. Okay, this should be a relatively painless installation because we've done this before. During the mock-up when we put the tank in the car. But there is one thing I want to do first before we install this. All right, what I want to do is put a little bit of foam insulation on these tank straps. So when they go up against the bottom of the tank, they're not just totally metal. pushing on the bottom there. And I have some of this old 3M stuff here that I don't know, even remember where I found it. You can use insulation foam that you'd use around windows or whatever, but I just need something that will protect the tank a little bit. It's not necessary, but I prefer to do it. All right, so foam is on the straps. Not necessary, I guess, but I don't know. I like to do it. This is a cushion for the tank. Let's see if we can get this around the straps and in. Here. Let's see. We're actually going to be way over here like that. Raise this up. Should still fit. And the whole thing here is I want to get it installed and see how high I have to make the cap inside in the spare tire well to cover up the top. The other thing I want to see is where do the fuel lines on this new sending unit come out. I may have to bend them down. Let's see what we got here. All right, let me get this up and we'll come back. All right, tank is installed. Still fits just like it did underneath. Here's my wiring coming out up there, and there's my supply and return line and vent, and they're not being crushed or anything, so that's good. So that is gonna work. Now got to go up top, see what it looks like as far as making the cover. And you can see here I'm gonna have quite the zigzag of a fuel filler. So this hose here is probably not going to work. I'll probably have to find something with a 90 or a 45 and make an attachment up into there. All right, so there's a look at what it looks like in here. I mean, here's the vapor dome for the tank. This is the section of the floor that I had cut out earlier. And now I need it to be sticking up, you know, a couple inches. And then plan is for the spare tire to go right over it and cover it up. Now I could make this a removable cover to get to the fuel pump, but as you can see, the fuel lines go way under the car. So as it is stock, there's no way you're going to get the pump out like this. I would have to cut the lines shorter or open up a much larger space there for the sending unit to come out. So I think I'm going to weld this in, and if I have to change a pump, I guess I'm just going to have to drop the tank. It's not that big a deal to drop it, but hopefully we won't have to do that. So I'm going to get this in here, weld some scrap metal around the perimeter of it, and get it welded into the car. And there it is. Impressive, I know. So yeah, that's all we need. Just, you know, a raised area so that the vapor dome has room, the fuel lines have room. Spare tire will cover it up. And that'll be hidden from view. Oh, I got to put the cover back on. Hold on. Got this guy. See if we can do this with one hand. Probably not. Let's see. There. Sure. There we go. Is that in there? I think that's in there. There we go. It's in there. I need a wing nut or something that used to go there that I don't have and was not in the car. There we go. That'll cover up the spare tire. Now, close the gate. Tank is back in, hopefully for the last time. I don't know where the wiring's going to go yet, so I just kind of stuck up out of the way. The lines are going to be up here. It will be a little bit difficult to disconnect. I was hoping there was a little more room around them. But, you know, once those fittings get snapped on, it's going to be a little tight, but yeah, is what it is. If I have to lower the tank, you have to lower the tank. It just is what it is. Shouldn't be taking those fuel lines off anyway. So, that is that. Oh yeah, it's dark out. Of course, I've been doing other things as well, not just working on the car. It's just lots of things to do. So, this looks really good. Position's good. We got clearance around the frame there, and I have it over as far as I can to the passenger side. So I've got as much room as possible here to get a filler neck on it. That'll be another day. Next thing's going to be fuel lines. All right. So now, fuel tank is installed. Nothing left to do now but run the lines. So, as I mentioned before, the fine folks at Evil Energy hooked me up with some parts. I don't even know all exactly what's here, but we're going to see. There's probably enough here to do what I need to do, but we're going to find out. And what do we need? Well, we need fittings to go from the factory sending unit to both 6AN and 8AN, like I said earlier in the build. We need a fuel filter, and we need a line. 6AN kit, 8AN kit, and I think that's everything that's here. This is the 10 micron fuel filter, and that comes with fittings for 6, 8, and 10AN. So that's cool. That's going to work. Let's see what else we got here. Things taped up quite the bit here. Open it up with a dull blade. All right, we got, what is this? Let's see. Oh, they sent me a fuel pump. Now this, I'm not going to use it right now, but I will keep it on hand because if there's any issues with that LT1 pump, like I said, this is the same pump that I put in the Turbo 55 Buick to feed the surge tank. And I also have this pump in the 56 Chevy pickup with the 5.3. This pump works really well. So that'll definitely get used, but we may not need it on this build. We've got a 6AN PTFE fuel line kit with the fittings. It's excellent. That's going to be for the return side. And I have an 8AN PTFE fuel kit for the supply side. Now, the reason I'm running PTFE is I've considered putting a supercharger on this thing. I do have a supercharger in the corner for an LT1. And along with supercharger comes maybe running E85. So if I was going to run E85, I would want PTFE fuel line. The other thing is, the reason I'm running -8 and not just -6, I want a 3/8 speed, which is fine for what we've been doing here because we're not making 1,000,000 horsepower. But PTFE runs different size-wise than regular AN line. Normally, a 6AN would be a 3/8 fuel line, and it is in normal AN, Army-Navy. 6AN means 6/8, which should be, or rather, sorry, 6/16, which should be 3/8. But the PTFE is one size down. So instead of 3/8, a 6AN PTFE line is actually 5/16. Same with the 8AN. Normally that would be 8/16, which would be 1/2 inch. But in PTFE, it's one size down, it's 3/8. So you need to know that. It's not something they hide or anything. When you look at the description on this stuff, they show the dimensions. But, you know, if you work with AN line, and I don't normally, the first thing in your head when you think like 8AN, you think half inch, but it's not. It's really 3/8 in PTFE, which is fine for what we're doing, and that's why I got 8AN and not just 6AN, because I don't want a 5/16 feed. That's not going to work. All right, other stuff we've got here. Let's see. Some fuel line clamps. Cool. Sticker. Some fuel line clamps. That's cool. I'll just set those here. What else we got? All right. These are the adapters to go from 6AN to the factory GM push connectors. So these are going to be on the return side, both at the sending unit and at the fuel rail. Another sticker, which is cool. So we're going to need that. All right, and these are 8AN to the GM 3/8 push lock. The others were 6AN to 5/16, or should be. These are 8AN to GM 3/8 push connector. Again, goes to the factory sending unit at the tank and up the fuel rail. So that'll take care of that. And I got one more package here. Okay, so these are some more fuel line clamps. These are AN8s. The others are AN6. Now, the other thing is, the only thing it looks like I forgot to order, unless it's inside one of the boxes, was a clamp for this fuel filter, because I have to mount this. Does it have a clamp in the box? It does not. So we may not be able to finish everything today. I can probably run all the lines unless they put it inside. Nope, that's 6AN. And let's see. This box is kind of hammered, so let's see what's in it. Get this cut open. Nope. All right, so one thing I must have forgot to order myself was a clamp for that filter. So what we'll do is we'll find out about where it's going to be, and I'll get a filter clamp on order so we can get it mounted. All right, you know what? I'm not going to wait for a clamp for this. We're going to make one. Let's just make our own. So the first thing I want to do is figure out where I'm going to put this filter, because it'd be nice to know where this is going to be. Then I can make my lengths and connections for the supply line. So rather than wait, let's just do this. So first thing I got to do, I've got my filter. I know I'm going to be using 8AN for the supply side. So I've got 6, 8, and 10 fittings here. So we'll grab the 8s and get those out. And these already have the O-rings installed. I think these are ORB type connections. So they're going to right into here. Or should. There we go. I'm going to go get some, get an adjustable wrench. You don't have to crank the snide out of these, because they're an O-ring seal. And I do not have aluminum AN wrenches. So yes, things will probably get scratched, but we'll get a wrench and snug those down. All right, couple wrenches. Said I'm not going to crunch them too hard because the O-ring should be making the seal. There we go. All right, let's find a place to mount it. All right, I think I am going to put this right here. G-Body has these little sheet metal supports, and this is a good place where I could get it mounted and still be able to get wrenches on it. And I think it gives enough room for the lines to curve nicely and go where they're going. So they're going to come along the frame rail, up over rear control arm, lower control arm mount, hit the filter here, and go up, hopefully, over the frame and to the gas tank. If I have to, I'll go through the hole where the brake line is, but I'd like to go over the frame. There is some room, but it might be a little too tight. We shall see. I've got some space, but we'll check it out as we go. First thing I'm going to do is get some line made to hook onto this filter, and then we'll shorten it. All right, so we're going to start with the 8AN stuff because I want to attach to the filter first. So got a bunch of fittings here. And remember, PTFE fittings are only for PTFE line. They do not work with the Evil Energy regular AN, I think it's CPE fuel line. They have their own individual fittings. All right, those are, well, came with some clamps too. We got the tool. All right, gonna need that. And what are we gonna use to start with? Probably to come off of the fuel tank, probably a straight. Yeah, I think a straight off of there will work. So we'll grab a straight fitting, and I'll show you a quick way you can tell if your fitting is for PTFE line or regular line. When you take it apart, and I'll do it like this so I don't lose anything. See the ferrule? That's for PTFE only. You won't find that on the regular fittings. So, let me get cutters. And we're gonna put one end together and then get an idea how long of a line we need. And one thing I've read is that the PTFE is not as flexible as the other style, but it's worked for me. You just don't want to kink it. But gradual bends I've had no issues with. And they give you this tool here to keep the Teflon from collapsing. Now this already has some tape on the end, so we're ahead of the game. So I'm going to take the nut. It might have too much tape on it. Yeah. Let me put a little less tape on this thing. Don't want a lot of tape on there because it makes it too thick to get the nut on. Right. Try again. Go. All right, I got most of their tape off, but some of it just didn't want to come off. All right, next thing we're going to do, because this is PTFE line, I need to use a screwdriver to flare out the stainless mesh covering around the tube. Now this is the factory cut end, so the Teflon liner is sticking out a little bit. You won't see that on the next cuts because we'll just be cutting it flush. Then the next thing is you take your ferrule, and you see inside it's got grooves to lock in, and one side is, where's the camera there? One side in there has like a shoulder. So you see the tapered end of the ferrule? Put the tapered end over the Teflon. And then you've got to get that to push and seat all the way in there. So I'll just push it on the table. Look inside. And you can see that the shoulder of that ferrule is seated against the Teflon liner. Then you can take your tool. Just make sure nothing's collapsed. Take your fitting. Push it in, and it should seat all the way against the ferrule, like that. And you slide the nut up. And once it starts threading on by hand, we'll use the wrenches to tighten it up, because it's going to get tight. Like right now I'm tightening it up by hand, but it's going to get to a point where I won't be able to do it by hand and I'll need the wrenches. All right, I've got that cranked all the way down. I will say I did scratch it up because I'm using adjustable wrenches, and I think on the next one I'll put a little bit of oil on the threads, because it's really hard to turn when it gets to the end and I don't want to strip anything. Nothing felt like it would strip, but I think if it was oiled, I'd probably scratch it up a little less. But it's all the way on there. So now this is going to run to the tank. I got to put my my snap-on fitting on the tank outlet. We'll make this connection, and then we're going to mount the filter and see how long we need to make this line. All right, so we're under the car. Here's my connections, my supply, my return, and the vent. I'm just going to spray a little bit of lube on those for the O-rings. In the fittings. And this is the fitting we're going to use. This is going to go from the 8AN fuel line that I have hanging here, and this will snap right onto my supply side. So I'm going to thread this on here. I'm actually going to tighten that up now, because there's not a whole lot of room under here on this application. So I'm just going to snug this up now. And then I'm going to snap on like that. And that's all there is to it. Now we just got to hook up the filter and continue on to the front of the car. You see that? You can't even see that. But it's there. There it is. And there you can see where I'm going to route the lines. They're going to go up in this area, up out of the way, stay away from the exhaust, and we'll clamp them down once everything's all routed. All right, so under here, like I said, the fuel filter is going to be mounted up here. And the nice thing with it not mounted yet is I can't really mess this up. So, because I got to cut this line and get it approximately where we want it to be. And what I should do is put the fitting on this first, and that'll give me a better idea. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to thread the fittings actually onto the filter. I took the ferrule off and the nut, because when I cut the length of my line, I want it to go right up to here. I need a pointer. Cut the line to this length, right here. There you go, I'm working backwards. Work with me here. That's how long you want. They want the line to be that long. Now I've got some leeway, obviously, because this isn't bolted down yet. So, but if you had this clamped in hard, that's your line where you want to cut your hose. So I'm going to put both fittings on and tighten them down, and then we'll cut down the hose to connect to this. All right, so I'll probably get in the way of the camera, but all I'm doing is kind of laying out how the hose is going to be routed. And I'll probably give myself an extra ½ inch just to be safe. And then I'm just going to take a piece of electrical tape and mark the hose. And that's going to be my cut line. And that should work just fine. That keeps the hose up out of the way. All right, I'm going to go with that mark right there. The electrical tape is, I'm going to use a cutoff wheel to cut this. You want to try to get it as straight as you can, so when you put the ferrule on, it seats completely. All right, so I made my cut. And the electrical tape is also a good thing to use to mark your line because it keeps the braided from flaring out. So now I'm going to put the nut on. You try cutting this stuff without any tape on it, I think the braiding would just flare right out on you and you'd be in trouble. All right, now that actually kind of automatically, when I pushed the nut on, it flared out the braid around the Teflon, which is what I wanted to do anyway, so may not have to take the tape off at all. We're going to flare the braid out a little bit. Get our ferrule with the tapered end going over. And I got one piece of metal there. You got to make sure you have all the braid away from the liner. You don't want to get it caught. I got one piece. Oh, that's sharp. That's all clean. Okay. Slide in. Okay, find yourself a good flat piece of metal to push that in. There we go. That is seated in there. I don't know if you can see it or not, but the Teflon is up against the edge of the inside of the ferrule. So that looks good. Take our tool, clean that up a little bit. I'm going to put a little bit of lube on the threads this time, on the fitting. Not much, just enough. And the fitting's already on the filter. Put that in there like that. All right, I'm going to spin this on by hand. And then we get the wrenches and crank it down. All right, that fitting is on. I took the filter off just to make it easier to tighten it up. And that little bit of oil that I put on the threads definitely helped. Just need a little bit of whatever you got. A little bit of lubrication. That worked good. And yeah, I still scratched it up because I'm using the regular old wrenches, but we're not building a show car here. So, well, actually, we are building a show car. We're just not going to have mirrors underneath. All right, we'll go over the last fitting for the fuel filter, and then we're not going to go over it anymore. It'll be the same way every time. Here's what happens to the line if you cut it without tape. I'm thinking it might be better to mark the hose with a piece of tape and then cut it in the middle. What I'm going to try to do right now is just kind of flatten out that stuff, the frayed end, because I need to get the nut over the end of this. And it's easy when it's taped. Let's see. Too much tape. I think we got it. Yep, we got it. All right, so I just put a bunch of tape over the end. I got the nut on there. Now I'm going to take this tape back off. All right, tape is off. Once again, little screwdriver. Just went around the Teflon insert, spread out the stainless. Take our aluminum ferrule, taper side down over the Teflon tube. That. Make sure none of the braided got cooked in it. All right, I'm going to push it on the table. Get it seated all the way down, which it is. Take our fitting in there, and we'll bring the nut up, thread it by hand, and then use the wrenches. And don't forget to put a little bit of lube on the threads. It just makes it much easier. I know that first fitting I didn't use anything, and I got it on, but it was tight, especially toward the end. It took quite a bit of effort to get it down. With the a little bit of lubrication, much easier. Still tight at the end, which it should be, but much easier to get it all the way seated. All right, there we go. All the way on. This will attach to the filter, and we'll run it to the front of the car. All right, connections made to the filter. I zip tied everything right now to the brake line temporarily, just so we make the connections up front, nothing moves and we have enough length. Maybe have to make a little bit more length there. It depends where we clamp it. But I don't want the line to move when we make the final connection up top, so I know how long the line has to be. This is where the filter is going to be. We're going to still make a bracket to mount that right down to this piece here. So that'll hold there. It's going to follow along and run up into the engine compartment up there. But right now, I'm going to run the return line, which is just going to be a straight shot. Obviously, no filter or anything. So we're just going to run straight off of the return and follow the supply right up into the engine compartment. So that's only 2 fittings. We'll get that assembled and come back after it's done. Connections are made, and wow, is it tight. I knew this area was going to be busy, but we are. Can you see that? Let me get a light. That is really tight. It all fits, but wow, the heater hose lines are just gonna make it. Good thing they're only 1/2 inch. Well, I hope that heater core is good, because I try to build stuff so it's easy to maintain and take things apart and stuff, but this corner is so tight that it's like if you have to pull the heater core, you're probably taking those fuel lines out. And if you have to remove the valve cover, you're probably taking those fuel lines out. And once the heater core is connected, if you have to pull a valve cover, you're probably taking the coolant out. It's not what I try to do, but it just is what it is. It's just really busy in that area. So needless to say, We'll be doing as many pre-checks as possible before calling it all good. All right, all good under here. I got permanent clamps now, and I left some zip ties just for keeping things neat looking, but they don't really do much. I took some of the Evil Energy clamps that are usually they just hold the lines together and drilled them out so I can use them to actually mount the lines right to the car. See what they look like. Normally they'll just have like a hex head socket cap screw, holds them together. And I use those in a few places just to keep the lines separated. So that's all good. Next, I need a clamp for this filter to get that permanently mounted. It's actually pretty solid as it is, but I want to put a bracket on it to hold it. All right, well, I was going to get some band steel and make a clamp for the filter. And I just thought of something really so simple it's stupid, but piece of rubber, hose clamp. It'll work. All right, well, you know, as hokey as that sounds, it's going to work perfect. It's not going anywhere. Stainless steel clamp. Good to go. Easy to remove. And it's encased in the rubber, so it'll keep it from vibrating or getting hurt. And that's perfect. All right, so the lines are run. One thing left to do, and that is the vent. All right, so in the beginning of the video, I mentioned about the vents for the fuel system. There are two. One to let air into the tank as you're running the engine, so you don't pull a vacuum on the tank, and one to let air out of the tank when you're filling it up, so it doesn't splash gas in your face. This is the vent to let air into the tank while the engine's running. Now, I've seen people just put like a little breather filter on the end of their vent line. That'll work, but the problem with that is you're basically venting the fumes into your garage if you have the car in a garage. And who wants to smell like gas, right? You don't want your garage to smell like gas. So what I use is one of these. And this is brand new. These are being made by the aftermarket now. What this is a vent valve for 3rd or 4th gen F body. I used to save these off of the 4th gen F bodies that I parted out in 3rds many years ago. The way this works is, this is pretty cool because what this is like a one-way check valve. This lets air into the tank while the engine's running. And then when the engine's not running, it seals off, so you don't get fumes vented into the garage. The other thing is, I believe this is also an overpressure valve. So if you have too much pressure build up in your tank, I believe this will release pressure. And I thought I tested this a long time ago, but I really don't remember. I know I tested the one-way check valve. But you can buy these on Amazon or anywhere. I don't know if this part number will help or not. Maybe, maybe not. I'm sure I got this off Amazon or eBay. But all I'm going to do is connect this with a piece of fuel line right to the vent on the sending unit there. And that's done. That's all I need to get the vent on the tanks, and the engine will run without pulling a vacuum on the tank. And there is my little vent valve. Tie it up out of the way. I moved all the fuel lines over to the center of the car just to give myself maximum room for the tailpipes. Even though by the time the exhaust gets out here, it's really not hot, but rather have this stuff as far away as possible. Wiring we still have to deal with. That's no big deal. So that's it. All the fuel lines are installed. All that'll be left to do is test them. But testing will not be done now because I don't want to put gas in the tank without a filler, because then it's just going to stink up the place. So after we do the filler neck, which will be a project on its own, then we'll put some gas in the tank, put 12 volts on the pump, pressurize the lines, look for any leaks. Better to find out now if there's any problems, fix it now. hopefully there's nothing. Everything went together fine. So should be good to go. Other than that, I'm going to keep messing with the wiring, but I think the next video will be coming back. We'll do the filler neck on the tank and finish up this fuel system and test it. So that's that. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for following this crazy build. I appreciate it. And thank you again always for subscribing. The support is awesome. So thank you so much. See you on the next one. Later.